بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين محمد رسول الله صلى الله عليه وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم تسليما كثيرا كثيرا. فما بعد, we come to the fifth point of the khutbah of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, where he said, so fear Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in respect to women and concern yourself with their welfare. And then he said, have I given the message? And the people said, Ya Rasulullah, you have communicated the message. And he raised his finger and looked up to the sky and he said, Oh Allah, be my witness. My brothers and sisters, if you think about it today, the one thing where we seem to totally get the maximum amount of bad rap is on the issue of women's rights in Islam. And our usual approach to that and our usual stance to that is to trot out and list out all the rights that Islam gives to women. Now, no quarrel with that. But it reminds me of an incident that happened with me more than 25 years ago. I think it was 1998 or something like that, or 1999. So we are talking about 20. So this is 22 plus another, so maybe 23, 24 years ago. I was speaking at the University of Massachusetts in Amherst, and at the end of it was a talk on introduction to Islam kind of thing. So at the end of that talk, a lady raised her hand at the back, and she said, well, what about Muslims, what about women's rights in Islam? She said that in Islam women are oppressed. So I said to her, well, let me tell you what women's rights are in Islam, and then I will let you decide, and you are free to decide whether women in Islam are oppressed or not oppressed. So she said, fair enough. So I listed out the usual thing, right? I listed out all the rights that Islam grants to women. Now, I was feeling absolutely satisfied. I thought to myself, well, now I've got you. There's no way that you are going to say a word after this. And this was a non-Muslim woman who asked this question, and I could see all the Muslims in at least the front rows, which I could see, looked extremely smug and self-satisfied. This woman said, first thing she said was, thank you very much for listing out these rights. And she said, I am absolutely amazed. I had no idea that this is how that women have so many rights in Islam, and some of these things even to this day we do not find in Western society. She said, thank you very much for taking the trouble to answer my question. I have a follow-up question. I said, what's that? She said, where can I find this? Where can I find this? Meaning, in which country, which place, which society can I find women who have these rights, who are actually enjoying these rights? Now, believe me, that shut me up, right? That shut me up. And and I know the sad reality. The sad reality is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala Jalla Jalaluhu gave women rights in the 7th century, which Muslim men do not give them to this day in the 21st century. Believe me, my brothers and sisters, there is one has to answer to this, right? One has to answer to this. And therefore I remind myself and you, and I warn myself and you, let us not take this lightly. Because this is among the huquq al-ibad. And as far as huquq al-ibad, which is rights of the people, are concerned, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala Jalla Jalaluhu, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, Allah will not forgive. Allah will forgive, or Allah may forgive transgressions against his own rights, because Allah has no need for anything. But Allah will not forgive the transgressions against the rights of people until those people forgive them themselves. And this applies to Muslims or non-Muslims, and this applies to men and women, whoever we come into contact with. One of the, on a side note, but not really so much of a side note, it is related to this. Among the du'as which are always accepted, a dua which always reaches Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, is the dua of the oppressed. And he said, even though he is not calling on Allah, because if the oppressed is the non-Muslim and he has been oppressed by a Muslim, he is going to call to whichever God he worships, but the dua reaches Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Now, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam especially therefore cautioned men about their women. And when we say they are their women, this refers to all the women under the guardianship of that man, which includes his wife and daughter, his mother and sister after his father passes away. He will be questioned about them and will be held accountable for their actions if these resulted from either his teaching or lack of teaching. Right? So, if the man has taught, has raised his children, and in there especially his daughters, as pious people, then he will benefit from that, and vice versa. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will not question the woman about her man, but he will question the man about his women. So be very, very careful about this. Many times people, men, come to me, they say, tell my wife, what are my rights? So I tell them, I will tell her your rights, but let me first tell you what are your duties, which means her rights. Because on the day of judgment, you will not be questioned about your rights, you will be questioned about your duties. And if you fulfill your duties, then the rights automatically get fulfilled. Now, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, women are like your prisoners, so treat them well. In Islam, there is no torture of prisoners. There is, prisoners are supposed to be treated very well. And in this case, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam is saying prisoners not because he is promoting that, it is not because he says that women are have no rights. It means that they are in your care. They are under your care, they are under your custodianship, and therefore they cannot go away anywhere, they are not earning for themselves. You are feeding them, you are clothing them, and they are living in your house. So be very careful with them, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will hold you, Mr. Man, responsible for that. In our countries, it's very common for people to get married, and then their daughter-in-law is treated like a slave in her husband's house by the parents-in-law. Please don't fall into this, because believe me, that woman who you are oppressing, in the night she raises her hand and asks Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, it's your neck on the block. Be very, very clear. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said this, as he said, women are your prisoners and treat them well, because for the most part women are in the power of their husbands and fathers, and in some cases also in the power of their brothers. So if their rights are violated, then the men will answer, because the women may not have the power to get their right on their own. So what are the rights? It is the right of the wife that she should be paid her mahr. A lot of men get married, the mahr is only verbal. They said we will pay, it is deferred and it never gets paid. It is her right that she should be treated kindly and honorably. It is not your right to curse and use profanity and so on and so forth. No, bad language is not permitted in Islam. It's her right that she should be treated with dignity and kindly and honorably. That she should be fed and clothed and kept in keeping with the husband's wealth and stature. That all her needs are fulfilled to the best of his ability. That she should be guided and encouraged to live a life of obedience to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and in accordance with the sunnah of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, which is The way to do that is for the man himself to live his life as a pious human being, obedient to Allah and on the sunnah of Rasulullah. It is her right that her personal wealth and property are not taken by the husband. They do not belong to you. It is her right. What she earns is hers. The husband has no right over it. What she inherits from her father and mother is hers. The husband has no right over it. Any gift she gets from her family, her friends are hers. The husband has no right over it. Any gift the husband gives her are hers. The husband cannot take it back. It is the right of the wife that she should be permitted to visit her family and keep those relationships. The husband cannot forbid her from visiting her parents and so on. It is her right that she should be helped in the housework and the raising of children by her husband, directly or indirectly. He can employ servants or something, he can help for himself. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made parenting the responsibility of both parents. And that is why parents are mentioned in the plural everywhere in the Quran, walidain. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala did not mention the mother alone except in the case of pregnancy, where He specifically mentioned the difficulties of pregnancy. These are the basic minimal rights. After all, a marriage is more than feeding and clothing your bride. It is the right of the sister. Now we talked about the wife, let's look at the sister. It's the right of the sister that she should be given her full inheritance when her parents pass away. Brothers who deny sisters their inheritance, claiming that it was spent on their wedding, are guilty of oppression and the usurping of their rights, and they will be eating the fire of Jahannam in the form of their sister's inheritance if they swallow it. Please understand this. Fathers who deny daughters' inheritance, claiming that they spent that on their wedding, are also playing with fire, the fire of Jahannam. They will answer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala when they meet Him. Spending on a daughter's wedding is not necessary. Keep weddings simple, as that is our way, that is the way of Islam. We have taken on customs that don't belong to us and which contradict the very spirit of our religion, and we suffer as a consequence. It is the right of the sister, if she is a widow, that the brother ensures that she doesn't want or need for anything and that he helps her to the best of his ability. Right? Taking of dowries in Islam is haram. Taking of 1 cent of dowry is haram. And don't play these games. Don't say, no, हमको कुछ नहीं होना. आप अपनी मर्जी से बेटी को जो देते सो दे दो. जलील है ऐसे बोलने वाले लोग. जलील है. We say, we have not asked for anything. Whatever you want to give to your daughter, you give. If you say this, you are zalil. What the father of the daughter wants to give to the daughter or not is up to him. It is not for you to say this to them. I know of cases where this whole drama, this game is played, where the prospective bride's parents are invited to the groom's house, and they take them and they show them a room which is bare, just 4 walls and ceiling and floor. And they say, this is the bridal chamber. This is the room in which your daughter and our son are going to be, after their marriage, this is where they will be. What is the message? The message is, if you don't want your daughter to sleep on a stone floor, furnish this room. Please, if this happens to you, break off that relationship straight away, because you don't want to marry a beggar. Why do you want your daughter to marry a beggar? Somebody who is inviting you to their house and showing you a bare room, what are they saying? They are saying, we are beggars. We are beggars. हम तो भिखारी हैं, फकीर हैं. तो भिखारी को क्यों शादी कर रहे हो भाई? So why are you marrying a beggar? Walk away. Walk away. Those who have not walked away have cried tears of blood thereafter. And believe me, you deserve it. Because if you are so stupid as to marry somebody who is like this, then you deserve what comes. Please. These are not Muslim customs. Reject them. This is haram. Completely and totally haram. It is the right of the daughter that her father spends time on her tarbiyah and that he ensures that she knows Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam and is obedient to them in all respects. It is her right that her parents ensure her religious and social skills training so that she knows all fundamental matters of religion, can read and understand the Quran, and knows and follows the Sunnah and has good manners. It is her right that her parents ensure that she learns the skills of homemaking. It is her right that her father loves her and guards her and eventually gets her married to a suitable man in accordance with the Sharia, not in accordance with whatever batil, false customs and practices that may be in your culture, in your country, in accordance with the Sharia. It is her right that her wishes are respected and that she is not forced to marry anyone. Please understand, I am saying this to my young sisters and old sisters who are not married, who are looking to be married. The final authority, according to Islam, in who you marry is yourself. If you say yes or if you remain silent, the silence of a bride is considered to be acquiescence, considered to be affirmation, considered to be a yes. If you remain silent, then you have agreed. And if you say yes, then you have agreed to marry that man. Then don't complain after that. If you don't want to marry, say no. Nobody but nobody can force you to marry in Islam. Neither your father, nor your brother, not your grandfather. Nobody can force you, not your mother, not your grandmother. Nobody can force you to marry somebody who you do not choose to marry. You are the final authority and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave you that authority. Don't just give it away. It is your right also to specify any terms and conditions that you have before you marry the person. Completely it's up to you. The only thing you are not permitted to do is to specify a condition that is haram in Islam. Other than that, any terms and conditions you can specify before you get married. Including, incidentally, listen to this one, including you can specify the term that as long as your husband is married to you, he has no right to take another wife. Now, Islam permits him to marry 4 women and have 4 wives simultaneously. So if you make this specification to say he will not be allowed to marry anyone other than you while you are married, what does it mean? It means that if he wants to marry somebody else, he has to divorce you. So this is something that you should be prepared for, that he might divorce you. But if you are prepared for that, you can make this condition before you get married, that he will not marry anybody else. The only reason you can't say you will not divorce, you will continue to be married to me and you will not marry anyone else is because then you are treading in the area where Allah has given him the right and Allah has given him the rukhsa, Allah has given him the choice if he wants to marry a second time. To marry a second time, he does not need your permission. But he doesn't have to go and do it like a thief. He can tell you. And you cannot forbid him unless you have made that as a condition in your premarital or prenuptial agreement. In that case, he is bound by that, and if he wants to break that prenuptial agreement and marry another person, then he has to divorce you. So this is the law as far as the Sharia is concerned. It is the right of the wife that her wishes are respected, or the wife of the bride, as I mentioned, that her wishes are respected and that she is not forced to marry anyone. Force can be direct or indirect. Emotional blackmail is as evil as the other one, which is blackmail. So it is not permissible for the parents or her family to emotionally blackmail her into marrying somebody that she does not want to marry. It is her right that her father does not allow her to disobey Allah and His Messenger ﷺ in any matter and brings her up to be a good Muslim. Needless to say, these are also the rights of the sons. they should be brought up properly, they should be brought up as pious and obedient slaves of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala on the sunnah of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. It is the right of children, men and women, boys and girls, that their parents give them this tarbiyah, right? Very fortunate are those children whose parents are also their teachers and shuyukh, parents who taught them the Quran and whose voice they recall when they read the Quran, parents who introduce them to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and whose dua is their resource in both lives, dunya wal akhirah, parents who they recall when they think of the sunnah of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, following it and not breaking it, parents who inspire. Ask yourself, am I such a parent? It is the right of the husband that he should be obeyed in all legitimate matters that do not contradict Islam. This is to the extent that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said that a wife is not permitted to give charity from her husband's property without his prior consent. If she does that, she will be a sinner and he will get the reward for the charity. He also said that the wife is not permitted to fast and nafil fast without his permission. However, she is permitted to disobey him if he tells her to do something that is against Islam, like taking off her hijab or anything similar which she has been ordered to do by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It is the right of the husband that his wife must not allow anyone he does not like into the house. It is the right of the husband that the wife is faithful to him and that she does not have a relationship with anyone other than him. And it is the right of the wife that the husband is faithful to her and he does not have a relationship with anyone other than her. Right? I'm not talking about taking a second wife. That is a legal right and a legal permission that has been given. I'm talking about having affairs and girlfriends. Not permissible. If she is unfaithful and has an affair, meaning sexual intimacy, then he is advised to first warn her, then refuse to share her bed with her, and then if she still persists, then he is permitted to strike her lightly but not on the face. He is not permitted to smash her up and beat her up and injure her. Right? And if she sees the error of her ways and if she desists from her wrongdoing, then he is advised to take her back and be good to her. Please note that the beating of women, which is one of the false allegations in Islamic law, against Islamic law, claiming that it is allowed, is permitted only in the case of a wife having an affair and refusing to cease and desist even after repeated warnings and even after separation from the husband. Even then it is not ordered, it is permitted with a caveat that he must not physically hurt her and harm her. The beating is not a physical thrashing, it is symbolic, no matter how much you may think the woman deserves it. I challenge those who claim that women are oppressed in Islam to find me a law that is not just lenient and considerate, but to such an extent that to seem almost unreal. There is no mercy greater than the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. There is no need to be apologetic about the Sharia. Only the ignorant are apologetic. Explain it in context. Those who are fair and just will see its virtue. The opinion of those who are not fair and who are unjust doesn't matter. It is sad to see today that even though Islam gives women rights that no other system gives them to this day, it is Muslim men who don't give them their rights which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave them, and they oppress their women in different ways. Women are not chattels. They are not inanimate property to be treated as such. It is even sadder to note that it is the women who oppress their sisters even more than men. Right? Think about the mother-in-law syndrome. Our entire film industry is dependent on this. The mother-in-law ill-treating her daughter-in-law. I'm talking about the subcontinental culture, and I'm talking about the Middle Eastern culture. It's all about women oppressing women. It's amazing, especially in the case of arranged marriages. It is the mother-in-law who goes and chooses the bride for her son, and then after they are married, she spends the rest of her life oppressing that poor girl and treating her like a slave. They will answer to Allah, remember that. You, mother-in-law, will answer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and on the day of judgment, that daughter-in-law of yours will take her right from you, and you will go into the hellfire because of how you used to treat her. If you want to escape from Jahannam, make istighfar, make tawbah. If you have been oppressing her, go and apologize to her and change now, not after you die. That doesn't happen. It's amazing that how this thing happens. The poor girl in this case is helpless in a strange alien environment, and she has no helpers. But remember, the one who does not have helpers has a Rabb Jalla Jalaluhu. I warn all husbands, I warn you, all husbands and mothers-in-law, to fear the dua of the helpless daughter-in-law, for the dua of the helpless against his or her oppressors goes straight to the arsh of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala without any barriers. And this happens even if the oppressed is not a Muslim. So what of your daughter-in-law who is a Muslim? Treat them well or face Allah. For daughters-in-law who play politics, I would like to warn them not to light a fire inside the house. It can only burn you. Don't make your husband choose between you and his mother. Under her feet is his Jannah, under your feet is mud. Don't politicize the children. All these tactics come home to haunt. Remember, your children learn from you, and one day the boot will be on another foot. Be good to your mother-in-law. Just as you are her daughter, she is your mother. Respect and serve her and win her over. Many people say, I remember somebody asked me this question, they said, am I compelled to serve my mother-in-law? I said, no, you're not compelled to serve your mother-in-law. But your husband is also not compelled to have only you as a wife. Right? So think about this. Respect and serve elders, because this is what we do. It's not a question of mother-in-law and daughter-in-law. It is our culture as Muslims that the young serve the elders, and the elders are affectionate towards the young. Children see how you treat your elders, and they will treat you in the same way when you grow old. So be careful what you teach them, because one day you will be treated in the same way. It takes two to tango. So do your part, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will help you, inshallah. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said about men and women and their relationships. We will talk about this, inshallah, in the next class. But for now, let me close with this, that Alhamdulillah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave us a beautiful religion which is supposed to be practiced. As I keep saying over and over again to remind myself and you, let us not fall into the trap of simply talking and not doing what we are supposed to do. Because on the day of judgment, the most difficult thing will be the rights of the people. I want to close with this hadith where Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam asked the Sahaba, he said, who are the destitute people? They said, Ya Rasulullah, the destitute are the ones who do not have dirham or dinar. He said, no, the destitute are the ones who will come to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala on the day of judgment with a mountain of good deeds. But there will be a long line of people who they have oppressed, who they have hurt, who they have murdered, who they have beaten, who they have insulted and dishonored. They will want their due. And on the day of judgment, the currency is deeds, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will take the good deeds of the person in proportion to their crimes and give it to the people against whom they committed these crimes. And this includes everybody, Muslim or non-Muslim. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, until a time will come when all those good deeds which they brought before Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will be exhausted and finished. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, who knows everything, but to establish the rule, Allah asks the people, the line is still there. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will ask them, now what do you want me to do? They will say, Ya Rab, give our bad deeds to that person. And Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, this will be done. And that person who came before Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala with good deeds the size of a mountain will go into the hellfire carrying somebody else's bad deeds. Please understand, you want to oppress your daughters-in-law, that is what you will face on the Day of Judgment. And daughters-in-law, remember, if you want to play games and politics with your mothers-in-law and your fathers-in-law, if you want to use children as pawns in a chess game, this is what you will face on the Day of Judgment. And the same thing applies to the sons and the fathers-in-law. Usually that is not a conflict in our culture, the mother and the daughter-in-law. Very sad how women oppress women more than anybody else. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to help us to understand and to take care of the people who are in our care. Kullukum ra'ina. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, Kullukum ra'in. All of you are shepherds. And you will be questioned about the people who are in your custody and your care. وصلى الله على نبي الكريم وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين.